Hey guys, my name is For Nomster, and over the last 2 months I've been secretly building the ultimate game night map in Halo Infinite's Forge mode. It's a tabletop board game battleground consisting of several iconic games, as well as hundreds of custom models completely designed from random objects available to anyone playing Forge mode. Meaning we didn't just buy some assets and plop them down in the world, that's not possible. Of course, one room isn't big enough for a 4v4, so we scaled everything to create the illusion that the player is only a couple inches tall. And I want to give a huge shout out to the ᶑᵉᵉ for co-forging with me. His socials will be in the description. He built a ton of hyper-detailed models unique to this map as well, and together I'm hopeful that we've made something that truly withstands the test of time. Also, be sure to sub to the ᶑᵉᵉ's YouTube channel. He'll be uploading beta test gameplay for this map in the coming weeks. Now I plan on publishing this map, appropriately titled Game Night, in January alongside an official trailer, as well as create a tutorial on how to create your own 3D models in Forge mode, so be sure to subscribe if that interests you. So, without further ado, let's take a stroll through each and every detail that Game Night has to offer. I really hope you enjoy. Alright, so just like with my Toy Story video, this is going to be kind of a long-winded one where I kind of just go through every single detail, so feel free to take a look at the timestamps and check out what parts you want to see most. If not, just go ahead and sit back as I go through each and every part of this map. The first thing we're going to take a look at is the more so unfinished Battleship game. There's actually two of them, of course. There's one way over there, and the one right here, because it kind of takes two to play. There's the 4 ships, you know, the iconic basic shapes of the Battleship ships, and they usually go in here when the game starts, but of course all the ships are on the board, so it's empty. But this actually acts as a little bit of level design and cover, so you can kind of shoot that direction as you sit inside of this little tub. If we take a look over on this side, all the pegs and whatnot, the white count as misses, the red count as hits. It kind of obstructs that concept, so this side doesn't have as good of cover. Unless they sit completely behind it, but then they're visible, you know, from that side and whatnot. So I try to make level design where I can. Right now there's a hole beneath this, which isn't supposed to be here, but that'll get fleshed out. As well as, you know, the numbers and letters. That's a work in progress as well, but the rest of the board is pretty much done. As you can see, this little green section is where the player on this board marks where their hits and misses are, whereas the pegs on this boat are where the enemy has attacked. So this was a hit, this was a miss, yada yada. I'm not going to really explain Battleship too much more. If you haven't played it, I'm sure you can still appreciate it for what it is. And if you have, take a look at the details, right? But yeah, so the pegs, interestingly enough, on this green board actually act as level design as well, because it's sort of a jump puzzle where you can climb to the top using the pegs. And then up here, you actually have a vantage point on the entire map of the tabletop. Both sides have that exact same concept, so either team can go on top of Battleship. I might even put a weapon resting on top of these 2 pegs as well, so it's kind of like a fun little jump puzzle to get to a weapon. Over here, we have Jenga. And this is, I guess, a good point to say that unlike my Toy Story map, nothing in this map really has physics, and that's not because I didn't want it to be like that. It was more so because the online mode in Halo Infinite as of right now has a lot of bugs when it comes to physics, so things don't look the same for other people, and that sort of just makes a completely broken game when you're trying to make the entire map have physics. So instead of just having like 1 or 2 things have physics and the rest of the map be kind of disappointing because it doesn't have physics, I just sort of settled for nothing having physics. That way we can sort of have a fixed level design, which allows me to do some cool stuff like this with the Jenga tower. Little arrows right here act as a little bit of visual storytelling. So right here you can actually jump up and climb all the way to the top. And from up here, it's an even greater vantage point than Battleship. Of course, we can see everything. We can see out the window. You know, we can see across the street the neighbor's house. There's a man watering a plant in the window, silhouetted, of course. We can see the entirety of the couch, as well as, you know, a few details there, and the entertainment system. And we can even take a look at the ceiling, where it's just rafters and stuff. And there's even a ceiling fan that slowly moves. So that's pretty cool. We also have a lamp that produces light. Of course, this is red base because it has the red accent wall and it has this orange artificial light behind it, whereas blue base has moonlight. As you can see, the tabletop is a little bit bluer over there, but we'll take a look at that when we get a little bit closer. Of course, we also have Connect 4 over there, which we'll take a closer look at. It's mainly blue, so it helps players kind of identify which side they're on, whereas Jenga is mainly orange, so this is red side. Oh, and you probably saw this as well. This is Pictionary, of course. ᶑᵉᵉ did a good job at recreating the little bit of an Easter egg we have in this map. where we needed a Pictionary image, and we couldn't really think of one that would sort of represent Halo. And this one did a good job because this is from the HCS event, the Halo Championship Series, where on stage, Joseph Staten and the crew were playing Pictionary, and Joseph Staten did I Need a Weapon, which Master Chief immediately, solved. But of course, it's just Master Chief with his little visor, and he doesn't have a weapon, so fun little concept there. If you haven't seen that, it still obviously represents Pictionary, but if you have seen it, you're in on the inside joke. Alright, but Jenga actually has a lot more level design than just that, of course. There's a fun little pencil sticking out, which Karma also created. Looks very good. But over here, right, we have a Jenga block sticking out, and this acts as cover for essentially the middle, where the rest of the table exists. We have D&D as well as Halopoly instead of Monopoly. Please don't sue me. And then we can kind of hide from that angle as well. But it has a very weak point right here, which is this little hole. If you're sitting behind this cover, somebody can see you from that direction quite easy. So when blue team's coming along the sides of these tables, they can actually sort of just jump over here, hop up here, and they're completely visible. So you'll never know if somebody's just about to hop up here. So it makes it a pretty vulnerable spot despite having a really good block right here. Because there's not a whole lot of high ground from over there that they can shoot you from. But also this little block acts as another ramp up to Jenga. Now, red team has this side, which is completely covered for the most part, where blue team cannot see, but blue team can see this side. So this side has a much easier jump path, but it takes a little bit longer and it's in the open. So if your team is wiped on blue side, then red team can basically climb for free. Or if blue team is just distracted, you can basically climb for free. But, put some sort of power weapon up here, and it is extremely strong, and both teams are going to want to try to get to it. That being said, blue team also has a path up there, which is right here. They can simply just jump and climb right here. And there's even this little pencil climb. And they're to the top as well. But of course, it's on that side. So if anybody's over there, they can see the climb. But that's enough of Jenga Tower, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at the pencil a little bit closer. Look at that detail. Beautiful. Even has the little number 2. Alright, so let's go ahead and hop down. As you can see, we have Rockem Sockem robots, but we'll take a closer look at that in a second. Over here, Karmaplex did a fantastic job recreating a little keychain here. Of course, a little car key, a little key fob, and a house key, as well as a little plushie attached to it. I just think it looks so good. I mean, look at the rings. Each individual ring is 4 pieces, by the way. They don't really have rings in Forge mode that look like that. And if you take a closer look, you can actually see all the individual pieces that go into making the key. Again, this entire map is essentially custom models. There is no key object in Forge mode that he just scaled up. It's a key that he made, as well as this, even the logo. So he did a really good job. I'm really happy about that. There's a ton of other ones that I'll take a closer look at as well. I'll let you know if it's Karma's models or say nothing, basically, if it's mine. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at Rockem Sockem robots. I built Battleship, Rockem Sockem, and the Jenga Tower, minus the pencil. So Rockem Sockem, of course, is just a fun little childhood game, but it's sort of like a party game, I guess you could say. A little game night game. Where, I just have all the details that go into it, right? Blue team beat red team, indicated by his, upwards uppercut, I suppose, as well as, his head has popped up. But yeah, it just acts as, a little bit of a ring to kind of do some melee in. Might put a shotgun or something in here. And you can kind of peek through the legs, or you can climb up on the hands and even the shoulders and kind of peek different angles all over the place. It kind of just depends on what you're trying to do. But for the most part, they just look really fucking cool, right? Like, look at this. I spent a long time trying to figure out the best objects to use so that it wouldn't become a lot of objects, but at the end of the day, I do believe each Rockem Sockem robot's like 90 objects or something. Even these individual bolts are just dry erase markers, so kind of went a little too in-depth there, but I think it turned out quite well. It's still pretty faithful to what Rockem Sockem looks like, and you can even do this really cool WWE slide where you jump in and slide through the ring and then come out the other side, scale-wise, so. But yeah, you can also do some jumps, like from the top of blue guy, you can make it to the top of Battleship for red team and things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I'll do a little bit of a circle here, just so you can kind of take in the details the light behind them and whatnot. Anyways, let's move on to the right side of the table here. Each side of the table, as you can see from the opening part of this video, has this little section where the drawers are pulled out and whatnot at various lengths. So it kind of extends the playing field of the table itself and makes it so it's not completely flat. So you can kind of hide from mid just on pretty much any side of the table and sort of pop up and shoot. So it makes the sides really strong and the middle a little bit more weak, but the middle also has, you know, a ton of obstructions and whatnot, so the sides can't shoot as much. This book is of course just a custom book, just a fun little thing, nice little top. And I built some little Ray-Bans over here. I think they turned out pretty well. This pair of glasses, though it looks pretty simple, is made out of, I think, like 50 individual objects. I just, you know, made it in such a clean way that it doesn't really look like anything other than a pair of glasses. So I'll take a closer look as well at all the models at the end of this video too. So take a look out for the timestamps to kind of highlight the objects and show you what objects I used to make them. But that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and hop in. As you can see, it even actually has glass in here, which of course acts as a barrier, but also a window. So you can hide behind here and look at chess and sort of peek over, right? Do something like that. But this team can also do the same thing. Now this book also has a little note card that's sticking out, and with that you can sort of see red bases spawn a little bit towards their battleship area. But you can't really shoot them because, of course, the glass is in the way. So this is a really cool head peek, but you can't actually utilize it for fire. It's more so for info. So I thought that was cool. But obviously things are subject to change as well, especially with beta tests. Maybe that'll be not as interesting as I think it will be. Let's take a look at the rest of the table in just a second. I want to take a look at the entertainment system. So Karma essentially built the entire entertainment system. It's really massive, though it is, you know, relatively simple. It's just some squares and whatnot. But as you can see, you know, we've even got some handles. I opened up this cabinet over here and put some blankets out there. That's sort of like a little blanket cabinet that people open up for game night, of course. And down here, we even have a massive blanket that's only massive because we're tiny, of course, that sits under the table. And there are a couple pillows over there for the plebeians that have to sit on the floor while the other people sit on the couch over there. So yeah, just some environmental storytelling. We'll have life over here, which I think looks really good, but I also put it on the couch because I can't really decide where it looks better. So let me know in the comments. I'll move it to one place or the other eventually. And of course the Halopoly box over there, and that actually is opened up because we have Halopoly over here, but we'll take a look at that in just a moment. We also have a Nintendo Switch up there. And you might have seen earlier, you can't really see it. I'll take a closer look later. Maybe from up here, actually. Get on top of Blue Guy. Yeah, we have an Xbox and an Xbox controller, so a little bit of a shout out to Halo and whatnot, just Xbox in general. But the rest is just pretty generic looking, you know, we got flower pots and whatnot. We also have a cup here. This is inspired from my Toy Story map, where we have a knocked over cup with some, you know, liquid inside. Essentially from red base, we have the ability to sort of use it as cover, or even fully go inside of it. And I'll probably put some grenades or something like that in here. So you're very safe in here, except for from red base. So if people are throwing nades at you and stuff, you can kind of just hop in here and basically avoid that damage for free. So yeah, from red base, you have cover and an interior tunnel, whereas from blue base, you have cover and you can climb on top using this deliciously looking strand of gum and use it as sort of like a peak like this. Not sure how effective it will be, but I mean, look at that. That just looks disgusting, doesn't it? Put too much work into that. Little strands. And you can go under it too, made sure of that, so it's not too obstructing. So you can even use it like cover like this, but yeah, not too great. Last minute kind of cover. All right, and that pretty much almost sums up red base. Blue base and the middle are a little bit more interesting in my opinion, just due to the types of games that are involved, kind of roll up my alley a little bit more. So Halopoly, as you can see, super detailed. It is the centerpiece of the map. We even have the words written out. They're shaded and everything. Of course, there aren't letters we can just place down in this game. I made them out of individual blocks. If you take a really close look, you can actually see the layers and whatnot. But even if you try to take a close look, it's really hard. Obviously, there's no obstruction when you're walking, and when you're throwing nades and stuff, like it doesn't bounce in weird angles. I quite literally am doing a technique I'm calling painting, where things are just one pixel apart, basically, and it turns out really well. I did the entire Monopoly board in that way. So it's a completely flat piece, but still took over 200 objects, not counting the pieces on top, of course. Even this little piece over here, the ship, the iconic ship from Monopoly. Karmaplex made this, and I think it turned out really well. It's made out of like various metal pieces and antennae and whatnot. And that's, I'm pretty sure, like 60 pieces in and of itself. So really fine detail right there. But yeah, so we have the Monopoly board. It's pretty faithful. Obviously, we took some shortcuts where shortcuts weren't really necessary, but optimized the map quite a bit. The words themselves are just illusions, but I think add quite a bit of detail when you're just running by and whatnot. But the colors are all where they're supposed to be, I'm pretty sure, and we even have Craig sitting here in jail. Yeah. Anyways, let's take a look at the hat. Pretty simple one, but looks cool. We have the go spot. So, you know, do not pass go and whatnot. Tells you to go this way, which I think is a fun little subconscious level design thing. Tells you to go this way. But you don't have to go that way, but it's just a concept. We also, you know, have the little green houses representing, you know, you want to place objects on boardwalk, of course. Houses, anyways. And then we took some creative shortcuts with the other two corners where there's a lot of detail there. I put a note card on top of this one, so it's not too out of place. And then over here we have some tiles from D&D setting on top of this corner, as well as a deck of cards being opened. I think it's a cool concept where, you know, there were shortcuts taken with the board, but in its place there's a ton of detail still. It's not just empty. Really happy about the Halopoly board. I think it turned out really well. The colors are really nice. Even if you look really close, you can see like these little like cardboard like fibers, it almost looks like, just because of the material we used. So it looks like a board game. Really like it. The dice themselves are, of course, not actual dice. They're just cubes, and inside there's a ton of soda cans to represent each and every dot. And they, of course, are also faithful to dice. Over here on the Monopoly board, we also have this little fun little construction of Jenga blocks that acts as vertical cover. So Jenga can't see you, so it acts as cover from height, as well as just, you know, generalized cover from columns and whatnot. And then on top is a 3 of clubs, looking very nice. I mean, look at that. Even the reflections look good. Might put a weapon up here. But yeah, just a nice little high ground that either team can kind of get up on in the middle. Over here, we have chess. So we're now sort of entering blue territory where, of course, red had the red accent wall. Blue has the open nighttime window for game night with a blue accent wall behind it, sort of. The rest of the room is blue. It's not really an accent wall, I guess, but it is a blue wall. So, all right, we have the chessboard. Of course, we have all of the beautiful reflections you can see in the little marble chessboard, as well as each individual piece has been modeled. So, you know, I didn't just skimp out and do like a few pieces or something. I did the pawns, I did the rooks, we have the bishops over here. I even did the knight, which is notoriously the hardest thing to model on a chessboard. I think it turned out well. You know, looks pretty nice. We also have, you know, the gold and silver variant for, you know, white and black for pretty much each piece. You know, the king looks pretty good. We also have the white queen over here. And yeah, it's just obviously acts as generalized cover, so nothing too huge to hide behind, but the chessboard itself also acts as a little bit of cover as well, so you can kind of play around pieces like this. And at the end of the day, it just looks phenomenal. So I think it turned out really well. You can, you know, jump onto the pieces and whatnot if you want to. I think there's actually a jump over here where, yeah, you can't quite make it there. It's a little bit harder of a jump, but if you jump from the king, you can actually jump up here. So if you're trying to race to the weapon from blue spawn, that might actually be faster than trying to go over there and get up top of Jenga. Another thing to mention about the chessboard is that this little drawer over here is pulled out, similarly to all the other sides of the table, but you can actually hide under the chessboard if you want, to sort of protect from high ground on red side. Even the bookshelves over there where the Raybounds are, you can sort of use this as cover like this, at least for that line of sight, and at any point sort of just jump up here. The lighting is also really nice. If you're on this side of the board, the lighting is blue, whereas if you're on this side of the board, the lighting is red. So there's always that little subconscious marker of kind of which side of the table you're on. I really love the dual lighting. We also have, you know, just this little standard little cup here. This cup and that cup over there are pretty much the only actual objects, meaning I didn't like model them with a ton of other pieces. Though when I didn't model them, I still added other details like, you know, the water inside as well as the gums stuck to the bottom of this one. So it's not as bland and boring as just placing down a cup and making it big. We also have Connect 4 over here, which has some cool level design in it. First of all, it's just very clean. I think it looks really good, and the holes offer really unique lighting over here. You might be able to see it a little bit, where the moonlight shines through the holes, and you can sort of see, you know, the blue spots on the ground, which is just really fun. For that detail alone, I wanted to put Connect 4 over here. But yeah, so we have, you know, the various tiles on the inside. As you can see, there's a hole missing here. So on this side, if you're standing in the tiles, you can actually peek through, and it offers a really cool shot at mid. So that's really fun. And you can also duck underneath or slide underneath if you want, from either side. And then these little side pieces act as cover too. So if there's people over there, you can hide like this. Or if there's people trying to peek blue cup in the corner here, you can hide on either side of this. Obviously, you can peek underneath, so this little spot, which is the little hatch that opens up Connect 4, you can sort of stand on it and kind of get the jump on somebody that's coming through from the bottom. Now currently, this battleship over on blue side is actually the exact same as red side. Obviously, that's not how Battleship works, unless you happen to place the exact same pieces and guess in the exact same way. But eventually, I'll sort of change it up so that the game represented on that board will show up over here. Still in a way that allows the pegs to get the player to the top. But yeah, I just copy-pasted Battleship, essentially pasted it over here in an orientation that doesn't allow you to see the other player's game, of course. Otherwise, that'd be cheating. Over here, we have the couch, which I think just looks great. If you take a closer look, it even has little couch textures, and it's got the seams and whatnot, and the cushion depth, and a little throw blanket, as well as, of course, life over there, which I mentioned earlier, and the ground below, you know. Just think it looks really good. It separates this section of the room from the beyond, which doesn't really have detail at this moment, but that's the purpose of the couch in the first place, so I think it looks good. Of course, we also have some knickknacks over here, which we haven't really decided where to place yet, so we're kind of just putting them on the table, sort of where players will be playing. So, you know, we've got some coins over here. We have a little eraser, as well as another pencil. I might make it shorter, so it's just a different variation of that pencil. And a little, you know, stack of sticky notes here, unpeeled. And a little letter here. Some games sort of have an envelope where you place info inside, like Clue and whatnot, so perhaps that could be referencing that. So let's move along over here. We actually have a different variation on this side versus the other side of the table, where unlike all the top drawers being pulled out, this section has the top drawer pushed in and the bottom drawer pulled out. And the bottom drawer is different. It's not a flat surface to write on and things like that. It has, you know, various little cubbies to put various toys. So we have some jacks over here. We have some pieces from Sorry, as well as the red velvet inside, looking very clean. You can actually take a closer look too at the detail that went into making the handles. I think it looks really nice. Over here, we even have a little screw that's hanging out. Beautiful. And then, of course, this little card here acts as a ramp. And then some tiles from D&D, which we'll get to in just a moment, that haven't been set out yet. A little torch here, looking cute. A little barrel, but it actually acts as cover. So this water tile right here, you can use it as cover, or on this side you can use it as cover as well, but you just have to crouch. And then you can even stand on top of this to get a peek at Jenga as well as the rest of the map. Even have some nice little scuff marks and things like that. But yeah, these are the 4 individual tiles: grass, dirt, stone, and water. And then up here, if we climb up, we've got a few more laid out as well as the entrance to D&D from the red side. And as you can see, we actually have an hexagonal shape to the tiles, which isn't the most common thing in D&D, not the most mainstream, but it is possible. I did this mainly because I thought it would look cool. I was originally going to do Catan, but Catan was more flat, so I thought a 3-dimensional D&D set would be way more interesting for level design, as well as it's just cooler, okay? Bottom line, nobody can argue that. But of course, they're not actually, you know, custom models. They're just like hex pillars from Zeta Halo. But I did a really good job, I think, at texturing them to kind of make them look like they're this rough plastic and stuff, as opposed to just like this metal, you know, pillar. Obviously, they don't look like Zeta Halo really at all, but it sort of inspired the layout of the terrain. But yeah, we have this little dirt path that kind of runs through the middle. We have some pieces over here that are just, I thought looked like D&D people, I guess, in a Halo-inspired universe. But we also have this guy right here, a beautifully designed mimic. Karma made the original version of this, but I kind of updated it a little bit to kind of add in some more details. There's, you know, like the mouth opening and the gums and whatnot, and the teeth I kind of aligned so they're inside of the mouth. And each side of the tongue is actually a different color. So there's like the underside and then the top side, which matches the mouth. He, of course, has these menacing, like, little buggy eyes, and it just looks really nice. And you can actually use it to hop up here if you want. But eventually, we're going to be putting a weapon inside of the mouth, so that'll be really fun because they're, of course, little loot goblins. If you don't play D&D, essentially, mimic chests are a very common trope in fantasy, where it's essentially a normal-looking chest, and when you try to open it, it tries to eat you. A little trap chest. And for one of my personal favorite parts of the D&D table, we have the catapult. Now, it's not the most detailed thing in the world, it's pretty basic, but the important thing is that it's functional, right? I wanted to make a really cool thing similar to my Toy Story map, where instead of using man cannons to get from point A to point B, I used Hot Wheel ramps. So in this map, I'm using a catapult, which actually functions, has particle effects and sound effects. You know, when you activate it, it's animated and all that, so I think it's really cool. But of course, I said it's functional, meaning you can actually use it. And it sends you all the way to the top of Jenga. So blue team has access to Jenga Tower, though it takes about the same amount of time for blue team to get to the top of Jenga as it is red team. Red team has to do parkour, and blue team has to use the catapult. Unlike red team, blue team is going to be soaring through the sky, though, and be completely vulnerable to shots while that's happening. So it's pretty risky, whereas red team can climb up the back of Jenga. So there's risk and reward for both parts. I suspect that blue team will probably have Jenga Tower as a strong point after the beginning of the game. So on initial spawn, everybody is going to be focusing the catapult and whatnot, trying to get to the top power weapon of Jenga. But as time goes on and the weapon respawns, blue team might sort of just get in here and sneak in and kind of grab the weapon before red team can think about climbing the tower and whatnot. So really cool. I think it turned out really well. As you notice, when I shoot it, there's no wind sound effect. It's just the normal sound effect of the catapult going up and down. But when we're actually in the catapult, there is a wind sound effect. The juice is immaculate with this map. Anyways, all right, let's move on. So we have an 8-sided dice over here to represent D&D. Obviously, we're missing some numbers. I wanted to build the D20, but I'm, not big brain enough to do that sort of sacred geometry. So this was just, a couple pyramids stacked together, very simple. And it's actually level design in the sense where you can't actually jump on top of this pillar, but if you jump on top of this, you can use the dice as a ramp. Not very efficient, but if you're trying to get a peek on people over there, you can actually get on top of this tower without having to go onto the card. But alternatively, of course, we can go up this ace of diamonds and simply climb like this. This is a really good high point to see mid from blue base, as well as just pretty much the rest of the map. But it has, cover in this concept, as well as, you can use the back of the card as cover, depending on, what side you're trying to obstruct the view from. We also have a little torch over here, which actually produces light, and if you take a close look, it actually does glow and has these little, moving lights. It's very subtle because, of course, it is just a toy. At the end of the day, it's not an actual torch, so I didn't want it to be flickering and things like that, like crazy. But yeah, it just offers some nice ambiance, and you can look through this window at the crimson lit view. And I actually wanted to take another closer look at the catapult here because there's a thing I didn't mention, which is I scripted it in such a way that only the player that's on top of the catapult when it's being activated gets flung. You can actually use this as cover and then activate it and then, shoot if you want to kind of get the jump on people. I think it's a pretty cool concept where, people might be trying to run around to get an angle on you and you can essentially get rid of your cover to fire at them and whatnot. So pretty simple, probably won't be used that much, but it is a possibility that's kind of coded into the concept, so I think that's fun. Over here, of course, we have the rest of D&D. Let me get a vantage point here so you can kind of see the concept. Right, we have this little grassy field with this little wooden wall and then a little stone section here where there's a little river that's running through underneath this bridge. So with rudimentary D&D shapes, we have this nice little, environmental level design that doesn't actually use any actual environment. So I think it's really fun. The water itself, is a little bit more reflective, whereas, grass and stuff like that doesn't have as much of a sheen. So it's just like actual tiles. I think it's really cool. This barrel, I even put in the detail that the lower half is wet. I don't know how important that is to you guys. But anyways, let's go ahead and climb up the waterfall here and take a look at this. This is a beautiful Roku remote that Karma modeled. I think it looks really good. I put in some last minute additions of some little dusty Cheeto fingerprints to represent the secret about this remote. And that's that the remote is actually functional. So if we actually take a closer look at the start button, there's a little activate thing that pops up. So it's a little bit of an Easter egg, and it even has a little dusty Cheeto fingerprint there too. The remote can actually turn on the TV. And of course, this is the little party game on the Switch, Smash Brothers. I spent way too much time trying to make this as accurate as possible. The font and stuff like that is different, but I just thought it was a cool design nonetheless, but the rest of it is pretty faithful to what it looks like. I need to add the word solo duo right here, as well as, the little 4 sections up there, but the main concept is blocked out. And, at any point, people can turn on the TV, and then I'll even code it eventually so that you can turn it back off. Maybe on a timer, so people don't just spam it and give people a freaking strobe effect. But yeah, just from any point, you can see that the TV's turned on, and if they're foolish enough to turn it on, just to see the cool effect, you can know that somebody's actually sitting on top of Roku over there. That's the official call out. I'm naming it now. But that's pretty much it for D&D, and I think pretty much it for, I guess, essentially the entirety of the map. I'll take a closer look at some of the models here real quick. Of course, we have this deck of cards, which just looks really clean in my opinion. We have a couple UNSC decals, just like the ones on the back of Battleship, but they're folded in such a way that it kind of gives off that little effect of like the whimsical wings that are all on the backs of cards and stuff. We also have the cards sticking out. Of course, I modeled them individually and put the backs on them and whatnot. And then the top, of course, we have an Ace of Hearts, and then we have an 8 of supposedly clubs, maybe. And yeah, I just think it looks really good. The level design with this little deck of cards is that, obviously from D&D, you can sort of, hide behind it like this. You can also use it to hide from mid. Just like that corner has the columns for the Jenga block, this one has, some coverage like that. You can also sit up here and kind of get coverage from Catapult with this lip, or alternatively, if you're from blue side, you can get some cover from red base like this, or just sit down here. But basically, if somebody's running that way and going around, you can kind of jump on top and still see them. So I wanted to do something similar to that. I think it turned out quite well. I can watch this thing spin all day, but I can't because we have to move on with the walkthrough. So let's go ahead and actually hop into Forge mode here and just kind of look around. As you can see, this map is actually pretty massive, whereas the table itself, the thing it took, I don't know, probably half an hour to look at, is actually a pretty small subsection of it. So ideally, as time goes on, I've built it in such a way, where the floor is detailed and the couch and whatnot, and we have the entertainment system up there, where this could conceptually be converted into some form of a big team battle map. So it's a much more fun, like, community thing as opposed to like a 2v2 or 4v4 map. Right, so if we hop down to the bottom, during actual gameplay, this would be an out of bounds zone and whatnot. But minus a few obstructions here, the bottom of the table is actually very clean. I didn't stick a ton of stuff through the table. So, we actually have over here, we have, the blanket and whatnot and the pillows, and it opens up a lot more surface area where I could put various things down here too. Right, maybe some shout out to, Toy Story and things like that. We can convert some of those toys and slap them into this map. Even incorporate some Hot Wheels ramps and stuff to kind of get around a little bit faster, and maybe even some vehicles. So kind of like low ground is more vehicle play and high ground is more competitive, like close quarters and stuff. So I think that'll be really fun, but that is for the future. For now, it is just a 4v4 map, and that's what it's going to be originally released as. But yeah, just a few little bit more details. We have, the light from this lamp shining down. We also have it on the ceiling. in various directions that took a few lamps to do. But it is in fact just a, basic looking lamp, right? Not too much going on. I eventually want to make it so that there is a cord plugging into the wall over here. A little bit of an outlet, right? Because right now it's just a freestanding lamp powered by batteries, I guess. Over here we have the couch. Again, a closer look. I think it looks pretty good even up close. You can climb on top of all of this stuff, right? The geometry is a little weird because they're actually just sandbags that are really scaled up. So they don't even have sound effects when you walk on it, which may be an issue, but it's not the biggest issue. Sort of hop over to this side, this cushion, you can more cleanly see the blanket that's underneath the table, and I think it turned out quite well. Over here, we have the whiteboard. Of course, Karma made this. So he actually just shoved a bunch of objects and made it peek out one side. So up close, it actually looks pretty jank in comparison to the painting concepts that we did with like the Halopoly board and whatnot. But from far enough away, it does look like dry erase marker with like various levels of pushing down on the marker and whatnot and different stroke depth. The ceiling itself is actually just a couple objects that I textured to kind of look like this sort of fancy trim and whatnot. The rafters are all just a part of that object as well. It's the ᶜᵒᶰᶦᵰᵉሔር catwalk. So this part and the ceiling and the wooden beams are all just one single object. And I kind of messed around and did that all over the place to kind of add trim. The window in and of itself is a lot more complicated in the sense that it's just more pieces. It's not like super tough to build or something. For instance, we have the individual blinds. They're just curved walls that are scaled and things like that. From the outside, they look like this. So it actually looks like blinds. And then we just have, these little strings that are just columns scaled to make it look like they're being held up and stuff like that. The little strings that you pull to make the blinds go up and down, as well as this little pole over here that makes the blinds open and close. And the window is actually open. If we come down here, you can see a little bit better. You see the moon is pretty bright and the sky is pretty bright, but if we back up a little bit, the moon is a little bit darker and the sky is a little bit darker. So it adds a little bit of variation, so it's not just some empty window. Of course, just using an actual glass block. Oh yeah, one more thing. This blind right here is actually a poster. So it's supposed to look like this generally, but I scaled it in such a way that we can essentially take the white object that we can't even retexture. Luckily, the blinds are white. And get these little bends and curves and stuff. So we have this one bent blind up here, which adds some personality to it. Now, outside the window, though it looks pretty fleshed out, is actually just a pretty barren wasteland of triangles and whatnot. Obviously, these little individual windows and things, they're just blocks that are emissive, and it's just giant cubes. It's not fully detailed skyscrapers or anything. In this window, where it has the silhouette of the character, it's actually just a ᶜᵒᶰᶦᵰᵉ character scaled to be two-dimensional. And then he's holding a cup, and then everything else is pretty much done in the exact same way as that soldier, considering the blinds and all that. I've just got some palm trees, a bush, and things, ways to add detail without actually having to add detail. And I think it turned out really clean. When you're down here looking at it and stuff, the bushes in the foreground are sort of lit up from the artificial light from this lamp, but everything else in the distance is much more, gloomy and blue and backlit by the other house's lights. From outside, this is what the house looks like, so pretty cool little thumbnail there, maybe. I don't know. All right, let's take a closer look at a few more things here. So we have the Halopoly board, and if you didn't understand the concept I was talking about via painting and whatnot, not actually painting onto the objects, the object itself is just being painted with other objects. So Halopoly, for instance, has a white object, a floor, and if I lift it up, it looks like this, and it's placed slightly above this black object, creating the illusion that it's text that is shaded. And I did that for every single object here, including, over here as well. The text is a little bit of a life hack. I made, these letters and stuff. Every time you see words, the words are actually just made out of 4 objects. It's just 2 individual black objects with doorways on top of them that sort of slide around and create these little divots in the text. So yeah, a little minimalistic design there. Now this ship over here, again, Karma made this, kind of went sicko mode with it. If we take a look under the map, you can see all the various antennas and stuff that went into making it. But if we go ahead and select it, you can see, 44 objects just to make the ship design here. So pretty cool, very detailed. I like it a lot. For instance, this thimble over here is just one object. It's just another party cup, but turned upside down. You can actually see a variation of it right here. And then it has, a texture on it, perforated grating that makes it look as if it is a thimble. So now, unlike the rest of the Halopoly board, Karma made this jail spot here where Craig is sitting inside a jail, and he did that using an illusion, using a light that actually produces a gobo. And there's an Easter egg in Forge mode where Craig is a gobo, so instead of, Craig, it could be blinds or a fan, things like that, but Craig is an option. So because the front is these little bars are black and set to 0 roughness, you can't really see the light shining on them. A little bit right there, but for the most part it makes it look like Craig is behind the bars, just like the character in Monopoly. I also mentioned earlier, but I'll just show you a closer look, this is just a cube with a ton of soda cans on the inside. Yeah, just sticking out ever so slightly. Alright, let's take a look at the chessboard. This is a ton of pieces, of course. Each piece, like this chess piece is 10 pieces, right? The chessboard itself is like 33 pieces, I think. And you may be wondering, okay, there's 64 squares, why is there only 33 pieces? And that's because I actually just painted all of the black squares individually on top of one giant white square. Little shortcut there to optimize the map a little bit. But yeah, I'll just kind of take a glance and highlight all of these various objects just so you can kind of see what goes into it, right? The individual little pieces that sort of merge together. The knight in and of itself uses a ton of different things too. They're the most extravagant pieces, so each knight is 20 pieces and there's a handful of them. But it has like this round base that goes into like this little square, and then each individual primitive ring here sort of juts out and creates the hair. You've got like the little cheekbones and stuff. And the mouth, I think, looks really good. It's also, again, just a primitive ring, but scaled in such a way that it creates like a horse's snout. So really cool concept there. And the chessboard itself is also inspired by an actual game. I guess not an actual game. It's from Harry Potter, the first movie, in which, Harry Potter is riding this bishop, Ron Weasley is riding this knight, and Hermione Granger is riding this rook. And conceptually, with that Easter egg in mind, I also want to code another Easter egg, which I haven't done yet, where if 3 teammates on the same team stand on top of those 3 pieces, it'll spawn a fun little power weapon in the middle. Now, Battleship is actually pretty simple. It looks like it would take a lot of pieces, especially for the ground, just like the chessboard, but it's actually using a concept where this texture UNSC panel floor is scaled just so that there's the exact same amount of tiles as Battleship. For instance, if I change the texture, those lines no longer exist. So I actually built the Battleship board, luckily to scale, and found a texture that had these like perfect squares that I can line up. The pegs themselves are just soda cans. The ships themselves are just made out of various primitive shapes. And the backboard is done in a similar way where it just has this texture, and I made some rings and painted them on there. They had to be thin rings so I can create this like little target / hit marker effect. So I couldn't just use the same rings as I did here, because these rings scale up to be like super thick, and I needed thin rings. So instead of just using one ring, I had to use individual curved walls and line them up, the same way that Karmaplex made the key rings over here. Also, a quick side note, Karmaplex made all these little knickknacks over here: the pencil, the eraser, the coins, everything you see on this little table. Here is a closer look at the switch that Karmaplex made. As you can see, it's very, minimalistic, but the concept is, it's really far away, so it doesn't really matter. Here is the Xbox that looks really good, and of course the very jank Big Hero 6 looking Michelin Man Xbox controller. But again, it's seen from a distance, so it's not really an issue. We could obviously probably make it look better, but it's just such low priority compared to what's left to do in the map. The Life board game, again, just has some nice little decals to make it look, like choking hazard or something, and the illusion of text because it's in the distance. And then Life itself, at least the board game in this case, is just made out of, objects that I painted on there and stuff. But I think I did a good job color matching anytime I ever did painting. Life, Halopoly, and the various different things in this map. Let's also go ahead and take a look at the glasses. I said that it was kind of complicated, and again, it's not just glasses that are scaled up. It is actually 46 individual objects, mostly curved walls and things like that, which are very hard to work with. As you can see, I had to use multiple curved walls just to kind of fill in the gaps between other curved walls and stuff, and to get the rounded edges and things like that. And then it was hard because you can't make curved glass or something, so it is just square glass that's in here. So I had to essentially form the glasses around the glass itself, the lenses. I also wanted to take a closer look at Rockem Sockem robots because it is a very beautiful focal point in this map. And as you can see, there is just a ton of different objects that sort of go into getting this mechanical / toy look. Let's go ahead and take a look at what those objects are. They're like support brackets and support brackets and then support brackets pretty much, but they're slanted objects, right? They're like stairs, so I had to like double them up and sort of turn them into rectangles by scaling them and things like that, so that you can get the square effect of the arms and the forearms and things. You know, we got the hands, we got the face, which is just, you know, various different primitive crates and cubes and things. We've got cones to kind of and columns mixed together to sort of create this little like effect of like the abdominal area and things like that. You know, the cute little toes. Let's see, how many objects is this? And each robot turns out to be about 75 objects, meaning there's 150 objects, the max amount of objects you can select just in these two robots here. Now, the last few things I want to take a look at are the scripting concepts and what goes into actually making a working catapult or a working ceiling fan. So the concept for the ceiling fan is that they are 5 individual blades made out of 5 individual objects, and these can't be rescaled. So I had to find an object that works as a ceiling fan, right? Like it looks like a ceiling fan and it's the right size, because you can't rescale dynamic objects, and they have to be dynamic to be able to be scripted to move. So these are just renamed right now to blade 1 through 5, but they're generally just like these giant Forerunner pillars. And inside of the script brain up here, if we take a look, it's relatively simple. If we take a look, the concept is one blade is moving to the next one, and then it's resetting its position, and it takes 15 seconds. So essentially, instead of doing this animated spinning monstrosity, I just have this blade move to this blade, and then once that happens, it immediately resets back to this position. In doing so, it creates the illusion of an ever-spinning fan, which I'll give you a look at here. Right, so this blade is now moving to where this blade was, and then every single blade is doing that, and it's sort of buggy every once in a while, and when it finishes the loop, it will essentially have this little janky reset, which is, I think, just a bug as well, but it will just keep on spinning, right? And pretty much anytime a player looks up and glances at it, it will just have this cool little spinning effect that adds to the ambiance of the overall atmosphere of the room. Now, as for the catapult, I'm not going to go into it as much because it is wildly more complicated in contrast to the fan. As you can see, it kind of goes all over the place and takes into account, you know, player vectors and things like that, and it's setting object audio loops and doing that depending on if there's certain variables. So here is a look at it. I'll kind of just glance around so you can see. But for the most part, if you're not into scripting, you're not going to care. And if you're into scripting, this is all you need. So there you go. As of right now, at least, that is the entirety of game night in Halo Infinite. So I really hope you guys enjoyed. Again, there is going to be some beta tests coming up. I'll let you guys know in the comments how to get involved in that. And make sure you subscribe to the Karmaplex because he's going to be doing some videos where he shows some gameplay of those beta tests, hopefully if they run well enough. And we'll be making videos very soon too, involving how to make custom 3D models like this for those of you who want to take your builds to the next level and make them so that they're very unique in contrast to anybody else that's trying to make a map similar to yours. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you subscribe to me as well if you haven't. I don't know what you're doing here if you haven't subscribed to me yet. What the heck? Also, this may be a little bit shameless, but I don't care. There's a little bit of an awards ceremony going on made by Kevin, in which I was nominated amongst various others, including Infinite Forges and Payman and stuff like that, or Payman. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. In which I was nominated as Best Forger. So I'll link that in the description and in the comments if you guys want to check that out. Vote for me. I will put chocolate syrup in all the water fountains in my next Forge map. So if you guys don't want to vote for me, there's a ton of other people to vote for as well as different subjects too, like Best Machinima and Best Montage and things like that. So you should definitely take part in it regardless. But again, that's all I really have for this video, guys. So if you enjoyed, leave a like, and of course subscribe if you're new here. I'm going to be making videos very frequently now. There's some cool stuff coming up. This is just the beginning. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.